Welcome back to my lovely HP community and 5D collective and anyone who's new. So, here we talk about a lot of things. Being yourself is the dominant subject matter. However, as we continue to expand, I'm also integrating the aspects of our lovely journey, as some of us are mystics and of faith. So, this one's going to be a bit of an integrated one. And I'm attachment trauma informed. And I have a bachelor's in political science and a master's in international relations and diplomacy. And I'm a person who loves to love and live and laugh and learn and expand and not cast stones. And I always see the bright side of everything because I have a beginner's mind. And that's called integration of the brain, restorative embodiment, self aware, accountable, regulating. Here's what mindfulness looks like, and spirituality, living and loving in the flesh, and a embodied feminine. So that lovely feminine, she, as this rabbi organizes feminine and masculine in a certain way, she's going to be explained by me as that which is an inner and outer nurture. So, you know how unconditional love works? Yes. When you are your restorative embodiment self, then you'll know that. You'll know the depth of your emotional, mental, and physical plane in your non reactivity. It's really cool and it feels gooey, ooey, ooey. And it's something that also is able to handle when that, which is human suffering, because I learned about suffering with Jesus, but also I was a 4-year-old who got rejected. So no, I wasn't suffering. I was sad. And I'm not joking. So suffering is something you do with your temporal junction because you'll relate to what's happening based on the past, and you distance yourself from the depths of the emotional aspect, so you're not mindfully aware, like the Zen master calls his sadness laundry. Okay, so when instead you are your own, like a mom, because my mom, when I'm feeling blue, all I have to do is take a look at you, then I'm not so blue. So I got to be given the capacity to self-regulate. This is what an inner child adult looks like. Okay, so I didn't lose Maria, and my divine masculine father is my strategic brain. I got a bunch of different father figures, if you will. They were not consistent, but the ones who were consistent, and that's between family and extended, consistently showed me what strategic looked like. But I didn't really need those because my one consistent contingent communicator consistently was and continues to be that, which is called mother in my life. Okay, so that's my primary securely attached figure. And all we need to maintain our whole self is one. And then I have a twin. So I also got to learn how to be repairing ruptures with a peer. And so when time came as an adolescent for me to say, hey, social engagement system, I didn't need that. I already had one who disowned me, meaning it came online, but I already had a peer to do that stuff with, so it wasn't hard to maintain that, which is okay, masculine, feminine, get it together, and here's that inner growth mindset. We're stars, all of us, and eternal children. Okay, so not being disrupted from my being raised with Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, and me continuing with catechism and after communion confirmation. I didn't have any clears, so I'm giving you a little background because, again, I am sharing how being you mindfully means we don't cast stones, but also how being spiritual as a mystic and of faith adds even more. It doesn't weigh you down, by the way. No. Whenever you hear the 4D who talked about, I got a cross to bear, I completely found it unnecessary and disrespectful to the ones who did bear the cross. But that's where you'll find the adaptive child part. So a person who doesn't learn how to use their prefrontal cortex, like the Zen master. So they have a narrative. What's up? Sadness. Well, I'm wearing a cross. It's called I'm a blamer or a martyr superior. The blamer is the one who I take care of everybody. Nobody takes care of me. And that's where we have our anxious, the ones who feel helpless. And so if they're helpless in shame and desperation, then they manipulate. If they feel desperate in grandiosity, then they're like the squirrel from Cusco town and they justify their vindictive actual mannerisms. And don't get me started on what I've seen. That's where, when we look at Michael Stone, the forensic criminologist, he has a scale for evil. They all end up in prison. And when we look at the ones who have personality disorders and are not healing, well, they get to share us their stories and go and live in the forest. I don't know. They could all go to therapy, but some say it's inaccessible. I say, well, that's not really the case. I've met a bunch of them that make all of their content available immediately good content which gives you exercises, and then there are explanatory videos like Dr. Daniel Fox for personality disorders. He's an expert. Okay, so there's the content online for free, and then there's Dr. Daniel Siegel. There's a bunch of people I work with, learn from, that are ready to rumble and roll, and everybody in my courses. So this where mindfully also involves those of us who care about being a mindfulness practitioner, a channeler, a personal development coach, a mentor. We will continue our education like I did. And the therapists, they obviously have their roles, and we like to know that on all ends of the spectrum, any professional who is whole will know unconditional love. And in fact, they will know. I just watched a story. A man who is of a apparently Christian background, the woman met him thinking he would be a good man. I've met the men in cloaks who, in fact, are on screen informing women of the contempt, disgust towards women after fucking. Yeah, so there's a bunch of people who have shame all over the place on screen, and we know about it's not only toxic masculinity, it's toxic femininity, but also what it is those who don't go to therapy to get their childhood trauma taken care of and notice that they have a little, well, it's not a bell, but as Gabor Mate points out in one of his speeches where he's sharing with people, you don't have a good gut. It's not everyone. It's the ones who don't have an inner child adult that knows how to love their self first that don't have a good gut. And what I've noticed in my 44 years of life from being mindfully aware and spiritually aware is there's a bunch that can come back to both, if we want to look at it, past lives and karma, to just this lifetime. And Robert Sapolsky with the science of no free will. Yeah, so you do have free will, but the reality is, like Peter Levine will say, if I say, hey, I can unconsciously love you, but you have had childhood trauma, you're going to say, fuck that shit. You're crazy and you're evil. And Dr. Daniel Fox has informed me too. Imagine somebody actually trusting less, a kind person. So a healthy self-worth woman I am, and this is why I was never like, oh my God, Maria, you did something wrong. Whenever things took place in certain ways, because I didn't do anything wrong, the individuals who tend to cast stones and to actually, like my facade friend, he's included. I mean, he didn't cast a stone per se, but the fact that in 2 days where I poured out a bunch of information that was really important, to then find out 2 or 3 years later that none of it made it to his ears. That's why I wasn't really like, oh my God, when it happened in other situations too, because teenage boyfriend, we could talk about that one, where he's questioning my faith as if his thoughts and emotions are irrefutable facts. So what you'll know if you're a person who is being yourself mindfully with complete self-confidence is how it is for when people don't have it. Also, if you're a person though of faith, you also know that you don't turn your back on God, because there's people who don't know how to go to therapy and get healed. They're not demons. They're not garbage. No, they all have unresolved transgenerational cultural trauma, and they hide behind the cloaks, whether it be Christianity or any other religion. They also hide behind the therapy cloaks. They also hide behind the myths. Any person who occupies one of those professional roles, in fact, could be potentially a person who has low self-esteem, indirect communication, passive aggressive. In fact, I've seen a woman. She has a bunch of titles, and I actively watched her as she twisted her words while I watched the smart people share the data of how personality disorders are healable. Yes. So I have two sides of a coin, because see, I can go and say anything I speak out of my mouth is falsifiable. That's what a smart person who cares, by the way, does, because I really want to be sure that what I'm learning is on point, because I really want to help the people I'm helping. So this woman, she gets on screen as this new finding, a study released of healing narcissism. Also, I know people that are healing. And she's like, see, the study, it shows this is a spectrum. And she twists her words, which falls on the ears of those who want to hear what she has to say. See, they're not healable. And in fact, at a certain point, though, here's where the teenager comes into the room. And all my colleagues, it's a lonely journey. I'm all by myself. See. And so here we have martyrs, superiors, codependent type people. So they're following their Peter Pan, who just told them narcissists aren't healable. And if they hear somebody like me saying, Dr. Daniel Fox says they are, no, they're not my expert. So there's that. When you're mindfully aware, smart. Oh, faith. Let me bring back God. And let me also bring in mysticism, please. Because see, they're both important, but they're both different, which is why they don't cancel each other out. They don't replace each other either. And so let me, again, beginner's mind means you're a smart person. Stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable, which is where you know I don't prove things. I speak about things. It's called discourse. An empowered ego will know how to sit in a room, have a good time. I love having a good time. That's what a feminine loves to do, is to nurture those who are actively masculines, who want to tap into their infinite potential. And I'm a masculine too, by the way, but I own this. You will own your sense of self, and therefore you will have open ears, open heart, and open all of it, because nobody's here with likes and dislikes in a way of you have to live life the way I do. And if I go to church, I'm going to meet a good woman or a good man. No, actively, this woman, I watched 15 minutes as her good Christian man basically did stuff to her poor daughters, and there you go. Which is why that woman now will think of anybody from that potentially denomination, oh no, they're all horrible, which is where people who don't grow up to notice, if they have had experiences and that they taint everything rigidly, that they're really blinding themselves to that other end of the coin. And I've met plenty of people that way. So again, when I meet men and women who say therapists are bad, I'm like, they're not all bad. Some of them are. Mysticists are bad. They're not all bad. Some of them are. And it's not bad or good. Please use the word effective and effective, because they're professionals at this point. They have a very specific role. So I don't use the word leader, because you're only going to be a leader if you know how to be smart enough to know how to talk to all people, which means you have no sides, which also means you know non-reactivity, and you know how to spot the ones who are idiots, because they are maintaining a specific spot, though, for the people who will have gone through such horrible experiences that they will say God doesn't exist, but evil does. Which reminds me back to my teenage boyfriend, who was the only person I needed to hear spit out their bullshit from their mouth about how evil wins, and then all these other teenagers. And I'm like, that's exactly what my catechism told me. You would all turn your back on God because shit happens, instead of looking that the people have transformation, cultural trauma, no demons. They don't get their trauma resolved. So it's really straightforward when I think of the violence, physical, emotional, mental, that people bring to each other one to one, number one, out there in the world. I mean, don't get me started. As a political science major, I completely realized that none of those who, no, I shouldn't say that. I'm just going to leave that one out. I plead on purpose the capacity to not chime in, because I have no words. I thought as a child that that word meant something. I grew up and I learned what it didn't mean. So I know when I'm going to see a person who is a leadership, it's called empowered men, women, and theys who know how to be, whether you're a 5D mystic or a 5D mindful person, you actually have the capacity to not even in one remotely moment cast a fucking stone, meaning my emotions are more important than yours. Me being seen is more important than you. Me being heard is more important than you. My way of thinking. So anybody who's a grown-up is going to be here, because otherwise they're the 14-month-old who thinks their thoughts and feelings are irrefutable facts, which I see plenty and bountiful of. And again, they like to follow people who give them the pat on the back and their very list of items to say, this is what a good person is. Good woman, good man, good day. And then they go copy each other. And when I see that, well, flags with no flag posts mean really, you got na 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 na. That's the bear. What's his name? Mowgli. Yes. Oh shit, what's the song? Well, anyways, you know the song. I sang the tune well enough. So let's continue, shall we? Where are you? This one. Order of Melchizedek. Embraced by light, mission uncovered, don't give up. Melchizedek, whose name means king of righteousness, is the first high priestess mentioned in the Bible, the one who initiated all the great teachers that followed him. He is mentioned in several Abrahamic texts, including the Dead Sea Scrolls and also the Kabbalist Zohar. He is an ancient gatekeeper of the light who is dedicated to helping all those walking the spiritual path to take the initiatory steps to align with light. Yeah, so when they use these words, that doesn't mean anything. Let me explain. The best way to describe this great being is as a wizard. When you invoke him, you will feel the presence of loving and angelic grandfather who wants to guide you to your greatness. Okay, so here's where we can begin to know that people who are spiritual bypassers get lost in their ego as they read these words. I don't. I'm going to explain to you in a minute, humanly speaking, what your greatness lies in and how to know if you're there or not yet. The order of Melchizedek, which was mentioned by Jesus in the New Testament, is a divine order of very high frequency light beings, angels, and masters who are working together as an energetic force dedicated to lighting up and outshining all darkness and bringing greater balance of masculine and feminine energies to the earth. Its members include Jesus Christ, Archangel Michael, Archeia Faith, and Mother Mary. By connecting to these with these cosmic beings, we give permission for our energy to be upgraded by light and to light so that we can become an even greater vessel of purpose for the world. Okay, so there are people who take these things very literally and in a way of rigidly giving themselves identifiers, which is where the spiritual bypassers of the 4D community are. So I would like you to understand that all of this can be explained as an energetic plane. Doesn't take away from the people or the old textbooks. So you want to make sure you're not embodying what I see show yourself superheroes doing. When I read this, it's an honor to know of the history, and it's an honor to know of the presence of something that is in my energetic sphere and that will bring me to that place. Now, as a mystic, I have seen angels, archangels, fairies, and so that's why it's not discounting them. But the 4D body type, they experience these things and then they become identified with them because they don't embody their whole self. Okay, so when I've seen the 4D, they take these things to the extent of I'm upgrading, they don't upgrade. I've seen people treat people like shit who think they're spiritual because they do yoga. I've seen people think yoga brings, no, I don't see them, I heard them, thanks to smart people, that yoga brings demons out of you, they don't. Okay, so that which is the light that you can embody, number one, a lovely course in embodied philosophy, embodied whatever they're called, is on the energy body expanding. So my light body has expanded beyond the rainbow body. I have had my Kundalini awakening, 2 Kundalini awakenings, thanks to one of my twin flames. Yes, that's the only way that for me, I'm a person who knows that we're meant to expand. Whatever it is, it will happen. And so I've seen that there are those who instead bring themselves to get a Kundalini awakening because it's now popular. Those people, they don't all end up anywhere except for where those spiritual bypassers are. But then again, they're okay with doing karma. So they're okay with basically being the 8-year-old of their self, the teenage version, and they're going to be happily ever after. And as long as they follow the laws, they're going to continue vibing in a frequency that is from their visceral. Okay, so I'm just giving you Maria's words. This is not something you want to write down. There's no need to. So being, again, me, Maria, mindfully, easy peasy. I'm not decent enough to be saluted. That's a human being with unhealthy boundaries. The minute that I'm reading this to you, I'm honored to understand of this order, to feel the presence of it, to also on our audio versions, we have some channeled messages for those of you who resonate with it. I love Jesus. Jesus is my man, meaning the Holy Spirit. Jesus, that's exactly where I learned all about faith, which is why it's different than when I say karma and I talk to you about the mystic stuff. Okay, so let me share that. The Akashic record reader that I am, no wrong path. So when you are not able to own your feminine and be your own safe haven, secure base, you will not be grounded in reality because your left and right don't work together. And 4D have a fear receptor that goes wonky, but they also have trauma charges that want healing and their child fragmented parts and disowned parts that want healing, and they don't go to therapy. So with that is bountiful. It's not mindfulness that is dangerous or meditation. It is that if you have parts of yourself that have been disowned and you have big trauma and trust breaks and breakage and you haven't learned shit about anything and you don't believe in the neuroscience and neurobiology and you don't head on over to get healed, well, there you go. So when I see some things that take place in general, it makes me very sad because yes, we have human beings who hurt each other. Again, Michael Stone's forensic criminologist scale, they all are surrounded by a therapist. No, all therapists, but I already know that's not how the world works, meaning God gives us 2 hands, 2 feet, and a brain to think, and a heart to feel, and ears to hear. And if you don't want to hear what I have to say because you refuse to hear that neuroscience, neurobiology, and all good therapists are sharing why some people are not able to behave in ways that will be conducting themselves effectively, and you follow fancy man and woman in suit who actively, this man on screen who thinks he's a role model, he's not a role model for me, he's only a role model for the same men that will do what this man did. Oh, I'll go to church, I'll present myself as a good man, and then they end up becoming somebody who's not. And in fact, this man makes it very clear in a 1 minute short how a man will feel contempt towards a woman. These words are very not nice, not accurate to healthy men, accurate to unhealthy men who need a therapist. He ends it with shame. And this is the title is what happens when a man doesn't text you back. So you are not only giving me a message to me, woman, that I will be felt disgusted, all this shit, and then you end with shame. You don't even say they should go to therapy. Please don't take offense. You don't give me anything in a 1 minute short, and you feel, because obviously you posted it, that you are giving me something of value. Me, human being, woman or man might I be. I see that you are shaming someone or basically making nightmare shit on screen, which we all know there's plenty of. Again, I mean, his fancy suits only pretend to be fancy for me. I mean, he's just mesmerizing the same lost boys, lost girls that follow him, who are all people who could use therapy versus that role model. But instead, they like that role model because here's where they're going to cheer it on and actually support what that person is promoting, which is not something kindness. In fact, they don't believe in human kindness at all or goodness. This is the part. And then they followed up with some other video where I'm like, whoa, now my heart's really breaking for you because you must have had that happen to you in your home, and your story makes me think, oh my gosh, that poor child of yours that will never see the light of day. But then again, you're here for all the other ones who don't want to take their child to therapist, and they'd rather toxic masculinity, femininity, all of it. They will follow this man like the fancy women. Women, remember, when they fuck you, don't think about it. I already know people laugh. All these women laughed with this woman. This is ridiculous. This is the masses for you. So when I see suffering of other women, oh, and by the way, the woman that I'm talking about, she went on to make a whole persona on how to be a trophy wife. So by the time I got to this, I'm like, well, not really surprised about the title of this one, because just you talking to me about being a trophy wife means you made yourself into an object, which tells me that you didn't go to therapy to get yourself helped, and that's exactly why your gut, like Gabor Mate would inform anyone of, is not really working well. Yeah. But the ones who think they know their gut, and then they go and again, so this is the part of being, how self-aware are you of, if you know how to love yourself first, which means that you get respected emotionally and mentally, and then that you also respect others emotionally and mentally, which is what we've been talking about today. So I don't go casting stones, and I don't go addressing maladaptive patterns of behavior or adaptive child patterns and say, you need to go to therapy, you know that? No. I know what it means to walk a walk and talk a talk, because Jesus taught it to me. Forgive, for they do not know. Blessed are those who believe without seeing. God taught it to me. Don't play God. Be humble. And also have a direct relationship, which is where God always wins. I'm not afraid. There's no Lucifer. There's no demon. There's no evil. There are people who follow assholes, women, men, and days, who are human beings who carry their suffering from their own childhood and spread it all on YouTube. And then there's the in-betweens who copy them, and really nothing fascinating happening except for what I already had seen as a teenager with a very simple interaction with my boyfriend and other human beings who said, evil exists, evil exists, evil exists. And all these evil people did, let me think, lie, not be accountable for any of what they will have brought. I mean, really. So yes, when I look at the big world, oh, there's plenty of shit that goes on. When I think about it, though, and I think of the small world with my teenage friends, yeah, I mean, sure, social media has made me aware of the same. Basically, when I look at it, I remember my high school. This evening, we had all the groups. They all separated each other, except for the ones of us who enjoyed each other, and the differences, all differences, and didn't say, you're yucky, you're not yucky, you're this, you're that. So in order for transgeneration, cultural trauma, gender trauma, all that shit to go over, yeah, we need people to know how to be grown up so that they can talk, but we also need those ones who take their bad attitude and, kind of get out of the suffering shit. So it's a bit of both. We have it, by the way, so it's all good. But what I also want to say is the ones who suffer to the extent, though, of not being able to move beyond, that's why we have the 7 to 14 assholes. And that's the part about being able to have faith, but also the mysticism. I'm going to continue. So this is a bit of an extended one. You can consider this type of discourse for our members, because I'm actively sharing more than I would quote unquote feel comfortable with when I know that I have stragglers who are not in our 5D community, because 5D is smart people. I'm going to stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable. I'm not proving shit. I'm giving you subjective experience as a mystic, as a person of faith, as a person of a brain that has a left that learns material from smart people about attachment trauma. I just want to be clear, this is food for thought. Presented in a very serious way though, because I don't do anything as I was told as a 4-year-old. Boys sent me home and they brought my twin to go around the block. And my mother said, it's because you're too serious. You want to sit them down and read to them, which is true. And then I grew up and there was a moment where I was at a table with a bunch of ladies. And I had already been given the information that I'm too serious by a bunch of people. So this is like what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe 2.5, most tops. Okay, so I have learned Maria is quote unquote too serious. I still can't help it because Maria's Maria, you know, like I don't hide myself, other than I'm just going to stay at home and read and be with smart human beings online all day. So I'm at the table and I think I'm about to ask a very simple question. Apparently, being able to tell me how your favorite day would go is not an easy question. And I didn't think that it was that hard. And when I presented it, people, but it is hard. And I'm like, okay, you don't know what pleasures you in your 24 hours. Okay, really, I need to go now. I really need to go because I can't handle, this is not me being serious. The lack of self-awareness of what pleasures you to your little giggle. I can't stare at you anymore. I need to go. So anyways, Anima Mundi for a minute, shall I? The soul of the world, all that is. When you are in a relationship with pure consciousness, it's called Purusha, pure energy, Prakriti. Purusha is unconditional love. Pure energy, I call it the 3-year-old. Now, I want to bring in Dr. Daniel Siegel because my course, Consciousness and Change, is a really good one. You could take it if you want it. It's accessible for anybody, and he's not too complex. But he talks to you about integration of brain and when you own the whole self and all that other great stuff. So I already have Maria right here. So that's why I was like, okay, that's why I don't feel changed, because I'm a whole self is a verb. And so he explains to you when you have an integrated brain and a whole self how it feels. And it's spot on. But again, I come with Jesus, God, faith. I feel it in my bones. I told a teenage boyfriend who continued to tell me, no, you don't. You're afraid of death. This is the only reason. And he told it to me with his little irrefutable fact tone, which he's not the only human being who thinks that they know who I am, and they don't. And this is when somebody is, you know, again, anyone who doesn't know how to have the whole self be there with me and know that I'm different than you and then welcome me, you're going to paint me a picture, and there will be parts of me that you'll let me know you don't like. And I will allow myself to understand if I can still be myself with that. If I can't, I will say I can't be myself apparently with you, so I will be able to not be here. I'm going to go. But I do thank you for the relationship. But obviously who I am and everything I am is something that displeases you to the extent of where this is not a relationship. And it can happen, by the way. Also, some people will just tell you that they don't like you. And that's okay too, you know, and then others will say, why don't you like me? I want you to like me. Yeah, so anyways, the soul of the world, all that is. Anima Mundi epitomizes the principle, let me put it straight though, the principle accept all, reject none. Simply put, it is the living soul of the world in all its multifaceted, multidimensional layers, bonded together by loving cosmic forces. Diversity is celebrated, multiplicity is honored, and nothing is denied. Multiplicity honored, nothing is denied, embraced. So we hug everything. I hug everything. Well, unless they don't want me to hug, then I say, okay, fine, I won't hug. But sometimes they give me the little okay, because they know I want to hug. I can't handle it if I can't hug you, but I will try to respect those who don't want to be hugged. So constructs of separation dissipate into the wonderful mess of shared consciousness. Anima Mundi is the link between the literal and the imaginal, the rational and the mythic. It is the connective fiber that makes life meaningful. This card indicates, the rest we don't need it. So, the soul of the world. When I heard with my catechism, God made us the way he wants us to be made. And then I found out that those who have a paused self they cannot be what God made them to be. It makes sense because neurobiology, neuroscience makes sense. And Patrick McNamara proves it. So I know yoga is a ventrovagal portfolio of toning exercises. I also know that mindfulness helps people, but they need good therapy if they have any shit going on that's really deep. Now back to the part that this is me being mindfully aware of me being a person who has knowledge, me bringing to you logic and all that great stuff that sciences can do for you. Let me bring in mystic karma. There's different soul age groups. I'm in the Enlightenment soul age group. Others might not move all the way here because they don't want to. They don't have to. They will live soulless, as Sadhguru points out. So they will be stagnating in whatever it is they decided. It's not good or bad. They will continue learning about the self through those other means that other soul age groups do. And you'll find them to be Cuscos, FYI, okay? Because they're manipulable, they're flag in the wind. Basically, you're going to notice that they don't know how to be non-reactive. In fact, they're charged. The societal and relationship soul age groups are the ones that I notice the most. And they're the ones who have the Zen master and the spirituality ones with the suffering, okay? So this is exactly why, as I was saying, when you bring in faith and mysticism, it adds more layers to what I could share with you is the journey of one human being, which is why every tree is not the same as the other. Let me show with you this tree of life and that rabbi, right? It's not his, though. Hopefully the people who figured that one out. This is not the rabbi. The rabbi have other notes, but no trees are alike. This is yours and yours alone. Grow, stand tall amongst the stars. You can't grow and stand tall if you didn't claim your little seed, your inner self. And your first year of life matters the most. And implicit memory begins to build at the 7th month in the belly. Now, some people, they talk about past lives. And as an Akashic record reader, I know about past lives because I do past life regression when we're doing Akashic record readings, okay? Because sometimes people want to know what they were. And while some will say you need to have that in order for you to work through a blockage, that's bullshit. You don't have to have anything. In fact, if it doesn't help you to become a better version of you because you're not going to use it, doesn't do shit except for give you a fun story, which is what I've seen. The ones who don't learn how to bring forth their dharma because they're busy building and living karma, which is any Cusco with an attitude, okay? So the part about all masculines can tap into their infinite potential, yes, of life. Anytime I meet anyone, they got buttload of it. But nothing comes out of that unless the masculine gets captured, contained, given limitations, and nurtured. However, this is the part that I'm going to want to share with you what a true feminine knows, but this comes with God, faith, free will. Okay? You have free will. Me capturing you isn't me letting you have free will. And then thinking of what does a true nurturer do when it's the first year of life. A third of attunement, repairing ruptures, the first 3. That's how I'm going to help you become securely attached. By allowing you to have safe haven, learn self-regulation, and then secure base. Meaning, yes, the world's dangerous, but I'm going to allow myself to leave you just for a little bit so that you can go. And what's shown by, I forget what his name is, something Schwartz, I think it's Schwartz. What's shown is if you leave them a little bit, it's better to let them cry a little bit than to go pick them up immediately because, you know, the embodied brain, it makes sense. It's like a little rubber band. So you get to help them learn. The body learns, oh, I can handle this, which is also why, like, Bezel van der Kolk and others will say, oh, it's good to put your body through stress. Fuck that shit. I'm not doing that. But I understand what they mean. Meaning, when you put your physical body under stress, that means it'll know that it can handle it. Reminds me of my panic attacks. There's things that have helped me to know, yes, I can handle it. Doesn't mean I want to do it. And I find it futile in the lifetime of now, personally. That's just my personal opinion. So, let me see if I can find this lovely quote that actually shares a Cherokee proverb, which I've read to you before, and we're going to connect it to feminine and masculine as I was talking about that. You just need to give me a couple of seconds or maybe more, depends where it's at. I have a lot of text sometimes. Okay. So I can't find it here, but it might be. No, yes, here it is. Good, I found it. Yay! So they use woman and man, but we can say feminine, masculine. And remember, divine feminine, when you own the somatic narrative, so you own this, but you don't have charges, stuff that comes up that you don't know how to process. You have a window welcome. So if your emotional body is not expanded and you don't own it, you don't know self-regulation, you're going to know dysregulation. You're going to have a bad gut. You're going to have a gut that's working off of a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old that had shame. This is that part that people don't get informed on. And you're going to do karma versus dharma, which isn't, again, a competition, but the difference is dharma is when you're a conscious brain, means you're integrated. You own your sense of self, your core, your narrative, your relational solo, and you've chosen the path of therapy if you needed it. If you didn't, great, you didn't need it. That's good. Come on over, because people need those of us who know how to be equanimous so that they can meet what it is to be unconsciously loved. And then they're going to have that opportunity to say, yeah, I want to get my eternal child on too. Not, I don't want it. I don't want it. Okay, so a woman's highest calling is to lead a man to his soul so as to unite him with source. Her lowest calling is to seduce, separating man from his soul and leaving him aimlessly wandering. And that's what that distorted man and woman do within their own little way. They think they're bringing people closer to somewhere. They're not. When I see them, they're actually capturing the lost boys, lost girls who are falling for their mesmerized little suits. No, they're not falling for it. They agree, oh yes, my woman needs to not have fucked anyone, not this, not that, not that. I decide what you need to look like. Oh, you also need to believe in the same laws I believe in and the same religion I believe in. Everything that I want you to be is everything I'm going to make you out to be. Do I want you to be a vegan? And you're going to be a vegan. You're going to be this. You're going to be this. So anytime you meet somebody who is a grown human being who's doing shit like this, yeah, remember, they're not grown human being. It's just one side of a coin, like a woman who will go and share, oh, I did yoga. It brings demons out of you, because she didn't know of Patrick McNamara, a neuroscientist, and how to understand, oh, look, you got trauma charges came up. You don't know about Peter Levine. You apparently don't know anything about what your body stores, and you didn't get informed, but it was really easy and quick for you to judge yoga and say it brings demons out of you. Like some scientists who will say, neuroscientists, yeah, mindfulness is bad for you. You apparently didn't go and check out the rest of your colleagues to maybe double check what you're about to say. So, I see that you jumped the gun on that. While I might seem to jump the gun on things, I don't. I also know that all sides of any story can be falsifiable, because my brain is amazed at how much beautiful information is out there. And when I do think of suffering, I know exactly why it's there. And I don't blame God. I also don't blame Lucifer. Oh, I also don't blame humankind. That's called a shame cycle. I don't have one. Inner critic, outer critic. Let me blame, shame, fault somebody for the misery that is out there, and let me sit and wallow in my sorrows and not get up and use my 2 hands and 2 feet that God gave me to say, I stand up for humanity, and say, yeah, our ignorant ancestors, we got a man on screen and a woman who perpetuated, and they've got millions of followers. And then we've got people who don't notice, I could have taken myself to therapy versus become a trophy wife. Didn't I think the word trophy wife might have sounded like a little bit of an objectifying? But then again, we got women who say, hey, remember when you go home, make sure he finds the house cleaned, that you fuck him well, that you don't talk his head off. I've seen this from a woman who shared this. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is not you kidding. We have a bunch of people who need to hear empowered people, women, men, and theys. We have others, they're not empowered the way they think. I've seen some of them. They come out of the woodwork because so we're a bunch of different people, the ones of us who care, in a way of saying, okay, we need to be voicing what it is to be a empowered man, woman, and they within the relationships of sex, of romance, of all of it. In the absence of saying that is you're not poly enough. You need to be pole, in the absence of making it into trending topic. How dare you choose the man? You should have chosen the bear. Really? So we want to make the conversation smart. with faith, with mysticism, with proverbs, with anything from spirituality, because sciences and spirituality, they come together like this. And that's what I'm trying to share right now. So let me read the man's part. So the woman, again, as a feminine, I already know leading you, a masculine, to your soul means me allowing you to become pacha, self-aware, accountable, regulating, by being able, like my man friend when he came up to me and said, you know you want it, why don't you give it to him? A human being who would not be the feminine that I'm telling you would have said, how dare you, asshole, you did, and would have reacted. I'm an empowered woman. I also knew what just happened with my mindfully aware body and brain, and also because I know ego, I eat it for breakfast since teenagers are all over the place. And my friend is just pissy in his pants for a second. My immediate thing was, I don't know what you're talking about, but no, I don't want him. He's my friend. Oh, okay. The way that the body moved, I got a 3-year-old who didn't be upset. In fact, him and I are friends to this moment. And when we see each other, we're just as in love as yesterday as friends. In fact, I'll never forget, a cute friend of mine. So he had a moment where he's like, so you're ashamed of me. You don't want to introduce me. I was like, no, I'm not ashamed of you. How dare you say that? Come on over. I didn't think you wanted to be introduced. And I introduced him to family members. So that's what happens when you have people who can understand what we learn. Again, no demon, no Lucifer, none of that shit. Could my friend use? Yes, he could. Just so could am I not decent enough? And so could a lot of other people that are actually in my circle. One in particular, this one, a man's highest calling is to protect a woman so she is free to walk the earth unharmed. I'm going to say the men who don't allow me to be protective of my own body in the way that I would want, yes, with the law and all that, yeah, they don't allow me to feel protected. And I'm pretty sure all of those who know what I'm talking about will understand. So I know that I will be and could be potentially harmed by men that have that type of mindset. That makes me aware. I won't do anything about it. I'm going to keep trying to vote and do things that are smarter and keep on understanding that we have different opinions and hope that we get more empowered men and women out there who can understand that faith is personal. One, nobody has to impose God on others. That's not faith. You can't make a believer into a believer. Not to mention that's not how free will works. Not to mention you're playing God. The don't play me is clear. The ones who want to play God think that they have a right to be fear-mongering human beings who will rigidly impose their mannerisms, and I think of the medieval times, not faith. You're a medieval time human being who doesn't even know what's coming out of your mouth anymore, so much so because you've lost sight of what faith is. You're far removed from the Holy Spirit. You're far removed from that which is God. You're simply in the 3D plane with those who will follow you, and we have plenty of places they don't take their children to get help because they say, yucky science, how dare you try to help us. So we don't have to go imposing on people belief, imposing science, all right? That's why the laws and voting and institutions were built. We don't go backwards. The people who think we will, they don't understand how it works. In fact, the fact that they use stories, I know why teenagers use stories. They don't know what's happening in the world. It's not social media. It's actively, whenever I spot a new one, I'm like, okay, wow, I mean, I really thought that Mean Girls and Hangover wasn't a thing. I see that even if I'm not going out, I just need to go turn on YouTube, go watch. Where are they? They're all over the place, all of them. A man's highest calling. Again, protect a woman. Yeah. I personally, I'm sorry, men. I know when I'll spot the ones who I will potentially feel safe with, and I know why. It's very simple, the way that they will behave. And actually, so if you asked me, I know one person who will instinctively be out there. They will be out there to save other people. And then others, which I think, yes, I haven't seen them in action. And some are flags in the wind. So I also know that part, which means if it's a good day, then they'll have your back. If it's a bad day, then they might not. They might decide to kick you in just for the kicks of it. And no, it's not something that's like, oh wow, that story. Remember, I have a story for you. Man's lowest calling is to ambush and force his way into the life of a woman. Like, am I not decent enough? That's an ambush, women. That's an active ambush of a human being. For 3 years, I said, I want to be your friend. And you're trying to impose so much so that you end with, and we'll become friends. No, we won't. And then you're like, oh, you're putting up barriers. No, I'm not. I actually am reiterating the same statement I made to you 3 years ago and, in counting. So this is where, again, the episode is a bit of this and a bit of that. But what I wanted to particularly conclude with is mindfully being aware is a pleasure. I love meeting new people. I love hanging out. It's sad for me to see that we still have so much going on with human suffering with men and women and not safety. So as a woman, I definitely don't think of men as safe. I just won't pick a bear because that would be ridiculous. The bear is not safe to me. I'll be eaten. I can't outrun the bear. Man, I might be able to talk and figure some shit out. Like that's where they got a brain. But being spiritual as a mystic of faith, that adds even more. I don't need to do any of that. I know that, again, God is God, and dark matter and dark energy is dark matter and dark energy. And that everything keeps moving in a very specific balance that doesn't get broken or affected by one measly, 10 measly, even 144,000 measly human beings. The ego of those human beings who think that we are in some way, shape, or form the light workers, the seed workers special, yes, that's their soulless. I can tell you that we have a relationship, of course. As a channeler, I'm honored to be here, and that's why this is not for all the time, because the 5D mystic that you see is here for 5D mystics and not for all of YouTube land, because all of YouTube land has people who take these words out of context, and I don't. I'm trying to help you understand, number one, you have a relationship with Akash yourself, but first you want to have a relationship with you as a human. Two, that which is the Soul Age group is also something important that I wanted to share, because it's when you move into Dharma, and therefore you are owning this, and you're able to present always, no matter what's happening, you will present yourself with integrity, and you will welcome all with their differences. Like my friend, who he didn't offend me. I don't feel even decent. I don't, offended is not a word that exists in my vocabulary because it's not personal, Maria. I learned as a kid what kids would do, and I learned how to keep it open, and then Jesus taught me how to forgive unkindness. And unkindness is not Lucifer, it's trauma and suffering. And people who don't hear about Gabor Mate and their gut and go to therapy so they can stop ending up with people who end up doing shit that is horrible. And you know what smart people are? I'm going to tell you what smart people are. So I'm out. I'm at that bar. I've told you the story before. That man who only has middle school. This is a man who saw me and my 4D mystic friends reading coffee cups, and he found it obviously quite odd. And he is a man of the church, but he's not a medieval, dangerous, toxic man or toxic woman. I'm going to use those words on purpose right now, because I need man or woman that wants to bring me their cloaks and tell me to abstain and to do a bunch of other fucking shit, basically. Keep talking. I'm going to know who you are if you don't perfume of sweetness out of all your pores and love all people. The one thing that I'm going to be certain of is if you don't know gooey ooey, you ain't the one, because you got some shit going on that you haven't healed. I don't have the room or the time or desire to find out. So the minute you're vibing is the minute I'm going to know who you are. And in fact, I haven't been around any people that I've felt physically dangerous recently. There's only two, and I remember the 2 times I encountered them, and in one occasion their friend came back around, the one that I had to entertain, and that got calmed down. I just babysat, and he told me his friends made him do cocaine, and he's a grown man, and they made me like a teenager with peer pressure. And I'm like, made me think of my facade friend. She made me lie. Did she have a gun to your head? To him, I couldn't say anything because he was out of it. I just said, are you feeling okay? Do we need to get a doctor? Are you, you really need to go home. He got better. He went home, and trigger alert, he might be dead. So that's a sad story, but I'm not surprised because his friends were obviously not friends and his family didn't take him to a therapist and they don't believe in good therapy. And there's so many therapists who don't believe in the good therapist. So what we have is a dilemma of ignorant human beings who don't believe in sciences, not social media is not the problem. No, the people who follow assholes is the problem. No, they're not a problem. Again, so back to the other story, a middle school person means they're not with high school, not with college. And in Italy, this is something that they know when you go to school that you get open minded. They understand how this works. America, not so much. But then again, America's schools, I've been to them. The kids who go, it's for the money, not to learn. So that's why there's a very different thought process behind what academia and being knowledgeable and cultured is when it comes to college degrees, at least from my personal subjective experience as a bicultural person. Is that better? That we can make sure everybody understands subjective experience. You know, people, you don't have to do that. No, I do, because there are people who need to make sure to hear that I understand that I'm not everyone. And it makes it hard, doesn't it, to talk to people? Yeah, I got to college. You asked me where I came from. That was disrespectful. We're in sociology class. We're in political science. Are you planning to negotiate with someone like this? Because I didn't realize you didn't know what negotiating is. Then again, someone went up to the Dalai Lama and said, how dare you smile in all the face of the suffering? So, I mean, am I the stupid one, or would anyone? I mean, again, having subjective experience in the forefront seems pretty hard for a lot of people to do, except for when they're humble and actual human beings. Man of faith, true man of faith, true man of man. Okay, so not a scary one, not an idiot one, not one who pretends to be a man and fancy with all of that other stuff. So I'm sitting with those two human beings who, with their friend, my regular listeners know, I got asked why I don't judge. You don't judge, so they kill someone. I don't judge. So they run and rob someone. I don't judge. And they continued with this, and I thought they were talking about judging because that's the word I use. I said, I don't judge people. So as I'm saying, I don't judge people. They, in their mind, apparently somehow thought that I don't incarcerate people, and that's why my butthole laughed even more. And this person's actually afraid of me because she also knows I'm a mystic. So she apparently thinks I have some magical wand. In fact, she doesn't believe I'm a kid of God. No, I'm an evil human being because, you know, of Clairland. She doesn't know the spiritual gifts, clairs, sciences. It's all one and the same. Apparently, a lot of people don't, and that's why they like to use Lucifer's words and names and all that other shit. So it's a bunch of shit when you hear bullshit. When I hear bullshit from my mouth, I'm like, well, not really for the ones who are 5D, okay? So it's only for, excuse me, you're confusing shit. No, I'm not. So long story short, we're at a table. This man that owns this bar, he had seen me and my 4D friend doing coffee cup readings, came up, saw what we were doing, was okay with it, didn't kick us out, didn't react, didn't, you know, get afraid. But he now knew me. So I'm at the table with my other two friends, the ones who were present when I'm getting interrogated by their friend, who I then found out is scared of me because they gossiped about all of that, you know, so they also said that their friend was right. So this is what happens when you have people who are not there as they don't know you. No, they don't. I don't even know how to put this one. They love me. They're friends. But they definitely didn't follow my train of thought because they said, no, our friend's right. You didn't say these words, so she's right, you're wrong. So that's when you meet ignorant human beings again. That's people who don't know how to use their complete brain. So I'm used to that one. Anyways, at the table, we find out that there was a situation where a man lit his girlfriend who was pregnant on fire. They were both drug addicts and stuff like that. And I just said, I'm so sorry for both of them. It's so horrible. But of course, he ended up in prison. He's a threat to society. He has to end up in prison. That doesn't mean that I felt happy for him. I said, I hope he gets the help he needs, and I hope that she gets the help she needs. Obviously, they loved each other for them to be together and, you know, this to happen. So there's sad. And the man turns to me and he says, so that's, I forget how he begins, but he says, what education do you have? as an Italian, he understood immediately that my way of approaching it comes from me being educated in subject matters and being open minded. He didn't judge it, he didn't think of it as good or bad. He simply asked a question as an Italian who knew, okay, you must be taught because of the way you're coming at this. You're not from the streets, essentially. Not that the streets is a bad thing, but the streets means you're ignorant of things and you'll be more likely to be a person who says, good riddance, or judgmental, cast stones, something like that. I mean, I'm not going to put words in the mouth. The person didn't say any of that. I just knew why he was asking me what my level of education was and trying to explain it. And then I answer, I say I have a master's degree. And he says, well, that might be why. I am only from middle school. So I have a very different outlook on all of it. And, we continue talking. And that is all. Then I get in the car and I find out from my friends about this jail stuff, and they justify that friend of theirs saying, well, our friend's scared. If only you had said that you do allow people to go to jail. I'm like, excuse me, I don't rule the world. What does it matter? Number one. Two, I never said anything about jail. I said I don't judge people. No, but it doesn't. And so, long story short, being yourself mindfully means I don't cast stones on anyone, and even when they're casting stones at me, I take it like a champ because I have integrity. Also, I'm a spiritual person. As a mystic and a person of faith, I know Jesus was not welcomed, was he? And I also know what God told me, how not to play God and how to be humble and how to follow in the footsteps of the Son that he sent so that we would be able to be reconnected and get to be that which we were meant to be. Heaven is in your body, which is why healthy self-worth people are the ones who are going to know about it. It's the restorative embodiment, self-aware, accountable, regulating person who chooses integration of the brain to be the owner of their sense of self and core self and narrative and relational and solo self. And I didn't go about my business trying to seek this out. It fell as I continued to be Maria and to support people to be their self. And I'm very honored to share with you this kind of exploration. So again, tier type content for my 5D collective when we'll have it on YouTube, because it isn't something that I want to share with those who don't follow. Excuse me, you're confusing science and spirituality. That person doesn't follow. They won't ever follow because they disregard connecting the dots and using two sides of their brain and getting out of their ego and their thoughts and noticing that the world has a bunch of subject matter experts on a lot of topics and they're not one of them, and that sciences and spirituality come together and prove the same thing, which is there is goodness inside of you. There also can be unkindness, and that's all trauma and dysregulation, because the minute that you know how to be a functional adult, then you'll also know, if you want, how to be an inner child adult. I'm an inner child adult because I grew up with faith, Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, brothers and sisters. All I want to do when I get into any kind of fight is hug. And you know what happens? There are people who don't give a shit about giving you a hug. They don't give a shit about anything, like my facade friend again. However it is that you will have shared your soul with someone, you will learn if they're a person that is of depth. And that's if they're mindfully aware of who they are. If not, you got a person. Who's Cusco? What's up, Cusco? Great time. See you later, alligator. So it's still a great time, 3D, 4D, 5D. Come on over. Obviously, again, for this type of content, it'll be for tier, and obviously some other times if I have anything special to share. This one really came because of, when I saw that thing, I was like, I need to remind myself every now and then that some people, they have a different path and they will be surrounded by a lot of suffering. So let's just keep in mind, it's a day by day. Rome wasn't built in a day. We are in progress to create human compassion and love. We're not there. Our sweet spot is now just beginning to unravel as we share compassion with each other and how to be healthy self-worth people. Again, come on over, healing trauma with new stories, being healthy self-worth partners, knowing what true love is. And it's not about monoamory, monogamous, or polyamory. And no, not all polyamory is polygamy. We also don't say you're not poly enough. Anytime you got a teenager in the room, you're going to notice, because they're going to do something like that. You got a secure attachment person in the room, you're not going to get that. You're going to get a conversation, and it's going to be a nice one. So I look forward to being back with you again. Thank you for stopping by and spending your lovely hour with me. Like, share, and subscribe if you do know anybody who would appreciate this, and also who can make, good use. Because the mystics, they need to hear different stuff. So do the people of faith, really. Makes me sad, breaks my heart that there's so many monsters out there of all sides. Mystics, religious people, therapy people, professional people, and they're all the ones who want to tell us how to shame each other and be mean to each other or yell at each other. So you want to find the ones who teach us how to be functional adults, and then who give you all the rainbow and then keep talking their head off like I'm doing right now. Then they keep going and going. No, I'm done. So thanks for stopping by.